Good morning and very nice to see you. We will be doing these webinars in English, as you know, I hope, because that will make it possible to share this information with more people, because we think that there is something very valuable that we would like to make available for as many people as possible. So today we're going to be speaking about eating disorders. And maybe some of you have a personal experience with it, or maybe you have been working with clients that are suffering or have been suffering from eating disorders. And if so, then you will know that eating disorders is really about great suffering. It's not about girls, young girls that want to look pretty and want to be slim and, you know, look like a fashion model. Sometimes that misunderstanding exists, and also it can severely, I think, isolate the often women, but also more and more men are suffering from this disease. You can isolate them even further and make them even more misunderstood than they already feel. So it's not about being slim and looking like a model, and it's also not about control and passive aggression, because that's also something that I sometimes find that people think that by not eating or by having, you know, binge eating disorder, or by having the bulimia. I will explain the difference between the three different types of eating disorders. But sometimes, you know, people think it's about controlling and manipulating the environment. Okay, I see we have some problems with the sound, but I don't know if we can do anything about that. I'm afraid this is the disadvantage of living in beautiful French countryside. The internet is not very high quality. So it's not about looking like a model and about being thin, and it's not about controlling your environment and being passive aggressive. So what is it about? Well, we will be talking about that today. And first I would like to share with you some figures, because they are quite shocking, I think, and important to know how many people this is affecting, and also to look at the definition. But let's start with some figures. National surveys estimate that about 20 million women and 10 million men in America will have an eating disorder at some point in their life. So we're talking about 30 million people. And of course, this might just, you know, increase. It probably will increase. In Europe, 1 in 10 women between 10 and 30 years old have an eating disorder or have had an eating disorder. 1 in 10 women between 10 and 30. So we're talking about 3, remember, it's about 3 different disorders: anorexia, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder. 1 in 10, I thought that was incredible. And you can see the definition starts at 10 already. So imagine, you know, we're talking about really very, very young girls already that are falling into this way of coping with life. I will explain to you later why I call it coping. In Holland, we have more than 100,000 girls between 12 and 18 years that are right now suffering from some eating disorder. More than 100,000 young girls. Okay, so these are the figures about all the eating disorders together. But then if we look at the eating disorders separately, we see that anorexia, there is 5 to 10% of patients that will die from the consequences of this disease. And it's because they become physically, you know, too weak. Their condition is too bad, you can say, or because they commit suicide. And out of all the girls suffering, all the and boys, men, 45% will completely heal, but 55% does not completely heal. 30% will have some some things that will start changing in their lives, but it will not heal completely. And 25% will not heal at all. So we're talking about 55% of people suffering from anorexia that will not completely heal from this disease. In Holland, about 5,600 people are suffering right now from anorexia, just anorexia. And the illness will become chronic with about 1 in 4 people. So that's about 25%. Then bulimia. There are severe health consequences to bulimia because it's either the imbalances in the body, like electrolyte and chemical imbalances. And this can affect heart and major organ functions. Now, let's see what the criteria are. Oh, let me see now. Here we go. No. And about here, okay, binge eating disorder. It's quite a lot of figures that I wanted to share with you. So give me a little moment to see exactly what I wanted to tell you. Here, the binge eating disorder. We have about 160 people in Holland suffering from binge eating disorder. It's the most common eating disorder in the United States. And often it's associated with depression. About 60% of the people suffering from binge eating disorder also are suffering from depression. So let's see the criteria. For anorexia, of course, we know it's about not eating, and there's an intense fear of gaining weight or becoming fat, even when underweight. This fear is so great that it seems impossible to eat. And there's also a very strong disturbance in the way that these people experience or see their weight or their shape. It's very strong, associated with a very strong denial of the seriousness of the current low body weight. So somehow, the image is completely... No, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm giving you all I have. So I cannot give you more than what you're getting now. So, but we can send you the figures. If you would like to receive these figures, we have them, of course, and we can send them to you after the seminar. That's no problem. So please let Tanya know, and then she can send it to you. So there's an incredible, disturbance in the way that these people see themselves. They're looking in the mirror and they think that they're not so thin. They actually think they're fat. Or with people that are fat to common standards, overweight, suffering from obesitas, they will think that they're not really that fat. So there's if you don't suffer from this, it's very difficult to understand, but there's a very strong disturbance in the perception. Okay, so that's anorexia. And for bulimia, the essence of anorexia is not eating and being afraid to eat. And the essence of bulimia is eating a lot and then throwing up or doing, engaging in other, as they say, inappropriate compensatory behaviors. So that means self-induced vomiting, misuse of laxative, fasting. There's all these things that people suffering from bulimia will do to get rid of the excess of food that they had, that they ate. So anorexia is not eating, bulimia nervosa is eating a lot and then trying to get rid of the food. And then we have the binge eating disorder, which is then just, eating a lot in a small period of time and then not vomiting or purging or doing anything to get rid of the food. So there you have the different eating disorders. Now, when there's binge eating, and which also, of course, is part of the bulimia nervosa, good to know that it is associated with eating much more in a small period of time than normally would be eaten. There's more rapid eating than normal. So it's really like stuffing, it's very, very strong, the urge to have the food intake is incredible. So eating much more rapidly. It's eating until uncomfortably full. It's not just full or a little bit too full, what we maybe all know, or most of us will know, like, well, it was such a good dinner, I'll just have a little bit more, and then afterwards you think, oh, I shouldn't have had that. That's feeling a little bit too full. Now we're talking about feeling really uncomfortably too full. Eating large amounts, of course, when not hungry. Eating alone, it's very often, or mostly you can say it's done alone. So that's why, people hide it, because there's a lot of shame associated to it. And then also there's very strong feelings of being disgusted with oneself, depressed, or very guilty afterwards. So that has to be hidden, of course. It's a lot of judgment on doing this. And very strong state of distress while engaging in the binge eating. Let's see. Okay, we went through all this. Okay, so these are, the definition or the rough definition and the figures, and we will send you this information. And it's an enormous suffering associated with it, because as you might understand already from what I told you so far, it's not something that can be controlled. Whereas the society and many people will think it can be controlled. Like, come on, just eat something. You're too thin. Or stop eating, or stop throwing up. So there's a lot of, I think it's really very important to get this information out, that this is not about consciously, it's not about behavior that you can consciously control, and therefore you can start eating or stop eating or stop vomiting. It's it overtake people that are suffering from this are overtaken by it. I once saw a client, absolutely, it's compulsive behavior. I once saw a client who was here with me for a week of an intensive therapy, who was suffering from bulimia. And so we were working on it. And then I think the second day or so that she was here, I happened accidentally to run into her. While she was coming back from the little village that I lived close to, she was walking back to the place where she was staying. And on the street, she had 2 boxes of pizza. One was opened, and she was like just stuffing herself with this. And I happened to come by. It was a great coincidence, but very good in a way for her and for me, that I could really be the witness to this behavior. And then I stopped, and I could see she was red. She was completely red. She could not stop the input of the food, even though she was feeling horribly, of course, ashamed that I saw her. And I could see in her eyes that the compulsion was so strong that if I wasn't going to do anything, of course, but suppose I would have said, okay, give me these boxes. It's not good for you. Stop eating. Stop stuffing yourself. If I would have done that, or someone else, I could see in her eyes that she was almost ready to, well, not to kill, but you could see this is about survival. She needed to stuff herself in order not to die. This is what I saw in her eyes. That kind of panic. So that for me, that was a very impressive experience, to really see the energy with which this kind of behavior can be often associated. So it's not about, well, you should just stop doing it. I think that's very clear. Now, looking at it from a PRI perspective, I just want to ask you a short question. We sent out an explanation by me on video of the PRI circle and the different defenses and how we see that works with the symbol in the present. I hope everybody got a chance to watch that. Yes, because I will be now not explaining it. I used to explain the whole thing in previous webinars, but I've stopped doing that. So I really hope everybody has watched it and can understand what I'm saying. Otherwise, you know, hold on to your question and you can always ask questions later on. There will be an opportunity for that. So the PRI way of looking at these three different eating disorders is anorexia we see as an extreme state, the most extreme state actually, of what we call the denial of needs defense. What you can see with people that suffer from anorexia is that there's a survival mechanism which actually says, I don't have any needs. I don't even need to eat. Everybody else might need to eat. Oh, I see it's only an explanation, it's not a video. Well, next time I'll send you a video. It might be nicer to watch. So it's an extreme denial of all needs, which helps these people survive. And it's so extreme that they even think they don't need to eat. At the same time, they know other people need to eat. So it's incredible how these different, you know, ideas can exist in this one head at the same time. But they are convinced that they don't need anything. They don't even need to eat. So it's a very, very strong mechanism. I call it the denial of needs to the 10th power. It's a very strong mechanism of really completely, you know, disappearing out of the body. There is no more body consciousness, no more body feelings. It leads to also severe impairment, for example, in sexual drive. There is no more desire. It's like the body doesn't exist anymore, and it's the complete living in the head. But even worse, you know, it's like almost being out of there. I don't need anything. That's anorexia. So I don't need anything is I don't feel anything, and sometimes, of course, there's associated with anorexia, of course. But the general state is just completely denial of needs. I don't need anything. That's the standard way of surviving. And there's a lot of fear, and of course, with the fear, there's dissociation. Then the bulimia is what we see more as a false hope. There is this big feeling of, you know, lack and a lack inside, a big hole inside, and it's just the false hope that you can somehow stuff that hole, that you can fill it up. But it's impossible to fill it up because that hole is not about now. That hole is about something that happened in your childhood. Just like the person suffering from anorexia is trying not to feel anything, but that's also not about the present. It's about not feeling what happened in childhood. So it's associated with rather extreme old reality. Old reality is a PRI term for those things that happened to us as a child that we could not process by ourselves. We had to repress. So anorexia has to do with an old reality that was so painful that the child survived by not feeling anything anymore. And then bulimia, in a way, you know, if someone has anorexia and they go to bulimia, it's quite a good step, because it means, even though they go into false hope, but it means at least they're starting to feel something. They're starting to feel this huge hole inside of them, and they're trying to fill it up with something, of course, that can never really fill it up, but at least they're starting to feel something. So whenever you see that with your clients, if they go from anorexia to bulimia, it's a very, very good step. And then, of course, the binge eating disorder is then the next best step, because there at least they don't start, you know, hurting their whole mechanism there by throwing up and using laxatives. And on the other hand, of course, the difficulty with the binge eating disorder is that if you binge eat, and yeah, you'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So of course people want to get rid of the excess food, but in the sense of the prognosis, you can say anorexia has a worst prognosis because it's the furthest removed from feeling anything at all. And even after anorexia has been healed, it can be very difficult to actually start living in a way in which the feeling and the connection to life and other people really comes back. Because you can see that some people will start eating more or less normally, but the mechanism of not feeling really as a coping mechanism, as a survival strategy, will then sort of, it can still stay in place in other areas of someone's life. So they can underestimate problems, like a typical denial of needs profile is someone who says, oh, there's no problem, don't worry, be happy. Now, of course, the person suffering from anorexia won't say be happy, but they will all the time be in a mode where they say, oh, it's no problem. They won't say it, but they'll think it. So there's never really the real contact with the reality and with other people is a very let's say it's been damaged, so it needs to be worked on. So the person with anorexia really can find roots again in the present and be present in the present. Then bulimia, as I said, is the false hope, and the thing to do with bulimia, just like with the binge eating disorder, is to help the client to access their old pain, which is behind this feeling of chronic emptiness. And of course, what is the feeling that is propelling this drive to eat? Where does it start? What's going on? Because there's something going on in that moment. Well, I'm happy to say that we have someone today with us who is willing to talk about her struggle with eating disorder. And I'm very happy always in every webinar that we do, we always have people that will talk from their experience with the particular topic that we're talking about. And I'm so happy because I think it takes courage. There's so much shame associated with, suffering from, well, what we're talking about today, but in every webinar, we talked about borderline. I mean, whatever, mental, emotional problem you're suffering from, unfortunately, and I really hope this is going to change soon, tomorrow, there is so much judgment on it, and there's so much, condemnation, as if we could just, change it like that. And that's not the case. And it will be wonderful if many people can start understanding why it's so difficult to change these things. And so it's wonderful, Henny, welcome, that you can share with us today your experience and what PRI so far has been able to do for you, and how you suffered. And I also would like to hear how you, if you want to share with us, what you have tried to do in order to, before you started working with PRI, what did you try to do to get rid of these problems? Hello. Yes.
Hello, Ingeborg. Good morning. Yeah, thanks. And well, thank you for the story so far, and especially the part where you explain how it cannot be controlled. And everybody thinks it's just easy to control, or just change it. Just don't eat. You know what you have to eat. You know how to eat healthy, which is true. I mean, in my mind, I don't know how many books I read or things I followed on eating healthy and knowing what to do. I think I'm almost an expert, so that's not a problem. And yeah, the struggle is for me a lifelong struggle until now, where with PRI I start to see the end of the tunnel. But if you ask me what have I done so far, I would say what have I not done. I think I'm struggling it with since I'm a small child. Also, it was like part of the family from my mother's side, where they suffered from well, I don't think they saw it as a binge eating, but they had, heavy weight, overweight. So as from young, I heard already, oh, when I was 5 years old, you better go sports because you're too big, and or you will get bigger and bigger. So let's go sports. When I was 10, I was on my first diet. I remember it being the bread diet. I don't know, it was a very strange diet, but already then, my first memories of being already working on overweight is already from very young. And if I look back, I don't think it was that bad, but there was just also a lot of fear in the family of getting overweight. And my whole life I've been dieting. I've done Weight Watchers, I've done things like Modifast, and where I lost it, I'm very good at losing it, losing the overweight, but it would always come back and it would always be worse. So at one point, I think when I was 25, around 25 or 30, I just stopped. I thought, I'm not going to put myself through this hell anymore. I'm going to accept what it is.
Because, sorry to interrupt you, but you would lose the weight and then you would gain it again. It's like the what we call the yo-yo effect.
Yeah, exactly.
And how much weight are we talking about? Would you share that with us?
Yeah, of course. I think the first big was like from like close to 90 to my ideal weight was always around 70. Yeah, so from 90 to 70 with Weight Watchers. Then it would go back on, and I would end up at 100. And then I would try Modifast, and I would go back to 70, and I would end up afterwards at 110. And so I would constantly end up higher than I was before.
So we're talking, just to understand, we're talking about like 30 to 40 kilos.
Yeah.
Weight. That much weight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
more. And do you have any idea why you would end up with higher weights than before?
Yeah, now with understanding PRI, I think every time I did it on false hope, and I had a lot of willpower to do it, and I was so fed up with how big I was and how I looked, and so I would always start this fight. I'm very good at fighting it and going to where I want to be. But then at one point you lose it. You snap. Well, at least I snap. I've deprived myself for such a long time from, I can't have this, I can't eat that. So at one point you just snap, but then immediately, now I understand, the primary defense kicks in. So immediately I would feel really bad about myself, and I would panic, like, I can't control it, it's getting worse.
Okay.
And then it immediately would, it always translates again in eating to comfort myself. Now I understand. So you get in this conscious vicious circle. And then it takes, every time it takes more willpower to get out of it.
And then you get more panic once you fall out of the willpower.
Yeah, completely.
It must be like a torture.
It is.
To be in that vicious circle and not understanding, because what was your explanation before you knew PRI? What did you tell yourself that why you were suffering from this?
Well, it was, we would, we had these family stories. It's just your genes. It's just how our body is made. You can't do anything about it. And, you kind of accepting.
Okay.
As if you could not do anything about it, as if you had to accept.
Sort of like people sometimes when they're suffering from, say, a depression, they'll say, yeah, well, it's in my family. My mother was depressed. My grandmother was depressed.
Yeah.
So it's in my genes. Like I can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, like my mother has it, my aunt has it, my grandmother had it. So everybody, the females in the family have it. And it's just part of life. It's just you have to deal with it,
Yeah.
Okay,
so at least
Huh? Well, you have big bones. It's just your body type, those type of things. It's just.
So at least you did not feel guilty for developing this problem, because you felt, well, it's my genes, so it's not my fault that I have this.
Yeah, no. When I was younger, not. But now, when I start to understand things better, then the guilt kicked in that I could not really cure myself, so to say. That I could not fight it. So that's more the recent period. But before, no, it was more like, well, it's just life, but I just
Yeah.
wouldn't accept it. But
Yeah.
and I didn't feel good about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So then what happened, Henny, when you became adult and then you started to feel bad about not being able to control it? Like you can say, okay, we have big bones in the family, we have a tendency to become, overweight, that's in my genes. But then as an adult, you get the next step where you think, well, I should be able to at least lose the weight, and I can't. So then what is starting to happen with how you see yourself?
No, I think for me, what happened in my case was I kind of moved, and I think from hindsight, it's just denial of needs. I just moved from, okay, I just can't solve this. It's obviously part of the family and I can't solve this. And until I know how, because very strange, in the back of my mind, and I always told a few friends, one day I'm going to cure. I don't know how, but one day I'm going to cure. And until then, I'm not going to do any diet anymore. So what I did was the opposite. I start extreme fancy dressing. I went to special shops for very nice clothing. I would look very pretty and beautiful, but being big, like, the big is beautiful.
Okay. Like big is beautiful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then being in denial of needs, because underneath I would just not feel happy. I did not feel happy, but I just tried to cope. With life.
And your body image, was it distorted?
Yeah, yeah. But what I recognized is I would feel very good when I had all these nice clothes, and I would always see just myself in the mirror. I think I mentioned this before. I would just see myself, and then I thought, "Oh, you look great." And then I saw myself on a picture in a context with other people, and I was like, complete shock, like, "Oh, wow, that's me!" And I look awful. I'm really big, but it's like I could hide in my own little world where I would just see me. I would not look in mirrors, not look in windows, those type of things, just to avoid.
Yeah,
Basically,
avoid all of it.
Yeah.
And physical problems, or were you starting to suffer from having difficulty moving or walking?
No, and I think that was one of the points why I did not do anything about it for such a long time, because I did not have any physical problems. I had no pains. Now I have, but then at that point I did not have pains in my knees or in my hips or in my no. But on hindsight, when I just move into a state, it's denial of need states, where you would just do less. You would just spend more time on the sofa instead of going out. Your mind just makes excuses.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And Henny, how much was the maximum weight that you ever attained?
Where I'm back now, it's like 130 kilos.
Yeah. So that's 60 kilos over what would be a good weight for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that is also, so now I worked with PRI. So I did the special protocol you developed for this, which is extremely helpful. It's tough, but it's really like, okay, now I get to see, where I'm, what my struggle is. But then still, you come to a point where you're still in front of this. Okay, but I'm, basically 60 kilo overweight, and I suffer from pains everywhere now. So
now pains, in your in the body, because it's heavy, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there something that, thank you so much for sharing all this detailed information, because I think everybody needs to know this. I mean, is there anything you would want to say to girls, boys, men, women suffering from this problem? That you just cannot control what you're eating.
No, I think for me, the most important message is also, that's why I was touched when you started about it, is to get a message into the world. Indeed, what you're saying, that it's because everybody feels they're just stupid who cannot control themselves.
Exactly.
Where, when I had my binge eating, attacks, Eh?
Yeah.
I would even say, because a lot of people call it, you're just an emotional eater. And I would say for me, that term is already difficult because I don't feel anything. I don't feel emotion. I just feel an urge to eat.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes, of course, I know it's related to being lonely at home or something, but a lot of times it's just also in company. It's, you know, so it's not related. Yes. So it's just so, I really would want to comfort them by, you know, saying, and I know I treat some clients with overweight, and they already feel very comforted by the idea talking to somebody who knows the problem from the inside out, because people feel a lot of judgment when they talk to therapists, dietists, who just say, you know, there's always this like, just change it. I mean, you know what to do, just stop. And that's
exactly what you said when the introduction. So it's so good to really recognize, and of course this goes for all these mental emotional problems that we have, like depression. It's not like, okay, come on, just go do something that you enjoy, or with borderline, just stop being so aggressive, you know. And life, it's so important to start understanding that a lot of people start to understand that you're overtaken by these what we call the defense mechanisms.
Yeah, completely.
And actually repress, you know, the real pain, that there's something behind the problem. It's not, you know, the eating disorder that's the problem. Of course you're suffering from it, but the solution, the real problem is underneath, and that's what we need to get to.
Yeah, completely.
And any judgment will just make it even worse, I think. Imagine if you're, you know, eating in public, for example, and you're overweight, and then you see people looking at you.
That's another part of it, you know. You're always conscious of when you do what, and then on the other side, when you're alone, like what you're saying, you start eating, you know, away those feelings. You know, it's just a complete mixed up thing with food. Completely, you hardly ever eat the thing you would like to eat. It's always a battle.
And Henny, did you suffer from bulimia, or was it just the binge eating?
Binge eating. Yeah, no, I never did anything of throwing up. No, just the binge eating. Yeah.
Okay, so now, what can you tell us a little bit about what happened when you started to understand with the, you know, the PRI way of looking at this? What did that do for you so far?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of difficult to start, because the first phase is to start to eat, but then to postpone the eating and start making connections with the true feelings. But if you don't have feelings, it's already strange. So it started with a little teeny tiny, I think I feel something somewhere, which of course you then have to have to grow. And you know, but also, you know, in the future, for guiding people with this, it's also tough because you have to eat all the things, you know. So it makes you also, you get all this feeling of disgust, all the eating. But what it really helped me is to get indeed an insight on that I am truly eating something, because inside I am suffering. I feel pain. I feel loneliness. I feel, a lot of time I'm afraid of things happening to me. So, you know, by doing the special protocol, I finally get at least an insight, or at least, that's not the right word, but I get an insight on that there was things wrong inside. I always thought, no, I'm okay, you know, denial of needs. No, I'm okay, because I honestly didn't feel it. So forcing myself in this special protocol got this all these feelings up inside. So then of course you get into the phase that you're not used to having feelings when you're strong denial of needs. You just have to start dealing with that. But now, after a couple of months for me, which is quite quickly, I mean, imagine all the years I'm struggling with it, I get a picture of the old pains and my old needs, which are really inside me, and which I'm constantly basically feeling and trying to eat away. So I really had to discover this mechanism inside of me. I'm doing like this because that's how it feels. Which I completely had no idea.
No idea.
No.
And that's maybe what makes it a little bit difficult to get this message out to as many people as possible, because a lot of people will say, well, you know, I don't have any pain. I had a good, my childhood was fine, or well, it was maybe a little bit difficult. So it's so counterintuitive, because our defense mechanisms, which now the eating disorders is just one example of defense mechanism, they're just completely repressing the truth. So we have no idea.
Yeah. No, completely.
But then you start,
Yeah.
So already within a few months, you can feel like, okay, I'm starting to understand what's going on with me. I'm starting to understand the compulsion.
Yeah, exactly. Because before I started this, I just had these compulsions. You know, I would just, you know, for me, it was most of the time chocolate. So I would just, you know, I would have these attacks, I would call it, where I would just need to stop to get some chocolate and just eat the chocolate like a maniac, or like a complete addiction. And then, of course, immediately it kicked in like, wow, my God, I'm doing it again. I'm already big. I'm getting bigger. What am I doing? And I can't stop it. So for me, understanding the situations and in the end, when you get an insight, when you go through this, you realize it's not like I thought, oh, there's going to be hundreds of situations which I have to understand, which is just not true. It's just linked to 1 or 2, 3 basic feelings which are steering completely my emotional brain and drive the eating. And now that I have those, you know, a picture of those, it becomes really manageable. I see what's going on.
Could you give one example of a situation?
So for me, one of my basic old pains is that I feel attacks coming from all sides. So with an old reality from a mother who was like completely losing it and then attacking me. And my brain, as soon as I start getting in that feeling, my eating is just trying to comfort me. I will always survive, you know. So especially in my working environment, I was eating a lot. Now I understand. I left my job, but on hindsight, I see that I would constantly have new triggers. So I would constantly have the perception like something's coming. I have to be alert. So I was basically.
So with like an email or someone
a phone call
message or your colleague coming in, can you do this? All those requests would be unconsciously perceived as attacks coming from all sides.
Yeah, attacks coming from all sides, where I constantly need to survive. So I have to survive this. So I would constantly need basically the food to keep me comfort in this situation, so to keep going.
And to repress this pain and repress the awareness of that this was actually happening.
Exactly.
You know, an email or someone asking you something, and then there's this, you're doing it, and at the same time there's a compulsion to eat, and you have no idea that there's a link between the two.
No.
Okay, no. And with you, it concentrated mostly on chocolate. So it's not like eating everything or anything. It's really specific.
Yeah, so for me it was specific chocolate, so mainly chocolate. But when I forced myself, like I could be like in this mood, okay, now we stop eating the chocolate. So in an attempt to, you know, lose some weight or something, it would just shift to, normally for me it would shift to cheese. So it's always this, for me it's soft, creamy stuff. And it would shift. I would just eat something else more than normal. So
it's never like eating 10 kilos of carrots, huh?
No.
And so that's very interesting also, because it means it's not about filling up the stomach. It's about having either salt or sweet, creamy sort of soft food, huh?
Yeah.
And so did you find anything out about that, what that means?
Yeah, I think for me, it really stands for I think emotionally, it's the softness of the breast. For me, it's the breastfeeding. It's just, you know, being able to softly feel the softness in my mouth and because I also don't take then the 85% chocolate. I want a creamy, soft
milk chocolate.
milk chocolate, milk
Yeah.
related things.
I
Yeah.
think for anybody watching this now or in the future, it's very interesting to look at what kind of food it is that you are eating or that your clients are eating, because it's not about eating itself only, not only. Because I have never heard of a problem with binge eating on oranges or apples or carrots. It's always on, like cheese is a very, very common one, I think, the creaminess of cheese. Ice cream, of course, you hear a lot. Then you'll hear a lot about chocolate. Huh? But also I hear about chips. So what is that about? Because that's not very creamy and soft.
No, I don't know, because I don't have it that much with chips, but I don't know. I think a couple of months ago, I heard somebody say that for her, the difference with eating chips was more that you're actually feeling more false power, which you like just eat away. And then I started paying attention, and I thought it could be true, because the times I sometimes do it, I actually feel much more aggressive. So probably repressed false power. Could be. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So does it exist? Binge eating on eating 10 bags of chips? Does that exist?
Yeah. I have one client who does it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So interesting to see what kind of food and what that's about. Yeah. Well, Henny, thank you so much for sharing all this information in detail. I think it can be so helpful to anybody, who is suffering from this, and also for any therapist that has clients that are suffering from this. Is there anything that you would like to add, or that we didn't talk about yet?
No, I think it's quite complete, and I completely agree with you. And hearing from you the figures, especially about the young children, because that's always been my aim. Go through this myself, and then help younger children or people around 20, 25, so they don't have to spend half their life for this search. Is even strengthening me more for this path, because it's just, and it will just increase. By the way we're eating in the food industry, this problem will just increase. So I think it's very good to get this message out and see how we can help people with this.
Sorry, and it's wonderful also to get past the shame, because there's so much shame. Yeah, we had a few people that we wanted to ask today to actually who have overcome an eating disorder, but there was too much shame.
Oh, still, wow.
Yeah, too much shame. Yeah, so there's not completely overcome, but it's so difficult. And this client I talked about, whom I saw eating this pizza, could not actually really talk about it, because this is a woman who had done all sorts of therapies and workshops all over the world, from here in Europe to, doing ayahuasca in the Amazon, going
South America,
for other therapies. Nothing had helped. And then she did PRI, and she found out actually that it was about being attacked when she was a very small baby, lying in her crib and crying, as any baby of course will do. Her parents not being able to deal with this, because they were in very strong, very big psychiatric problems themselves. So what would happen is they would come to her crib, and then they would just rock the crib, but so aggressively that she would be in there, actually up until the point where she would then lose consciousness.
Oh.
Because she was being shaken in that crib. And then when she lost consciousness, the abuse would stop, because then she was of course quiet, and then the father who did this would go back to sleep. And she found actually that what she was doing with her she was bulimic, with her binge eating, she would just eat herself into a state where she actually was almost like passing out. She would say, I do this after I've done my work, because she had a really good job, and then she'd every time after I've done this, operating on a very high level, I'll come home and I can't stop. I'll just eat so much until I become really unconscious, and it will last like the whole weekend, because before your body has digested all the sugars and all the carbohydrates, all this stuff. So she would be like anesthetized, you can say, the whole weekend. Incredible. And then she found the link that that's actually what happened, because the danger of the small baby she was would stop. The attack would stop the moment that she lost consciousness. So she was actually every time eating herself into that state of unconsciousness, because only that state of unconsciousness represented to her unconscious mind, her emotional brain, represented safety.
Yeah. Ooh.
So it was a complete shock for her to find this, you know, after all that she had tried and all the shame and everything that was associated to it, and not finding anything that really helped.
Wow, unbelievable, huh?
What a story, eh? What a and what suffering!
Heartbreaking,
That's what I saw in her eyes. You know, when I ran into her on the street, I saw this like she was possessed. She was almost like possessed.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much, Henny. Wonderful.
Welcome, Ingeborg.
Wonderful. Okay, so just to, you know, repeat once more, it's not about fashion, it's not about controlling the environment, being passively aggressive. And any therapy that contains forceful techniques, like, you know, force feeding or forcing not to eat anymore, it will not help, because it will just reinforce the idea that it's within our conscious mind to control this behavior. So someone who's anorectic and is being force-fed is just going to go into panic states and will go into even more, you know, state of not feeling anything. So we'll just increase the problem. And so it's a horrible cycle. Now, I would like to shortly position PRI in the field of therapies, where you could say that PRI is, on the one hand, you can see like therapies that go really in depth, like in-depth psychotherapies, but they take a long time. They're very deep and they're focused mostly on the past. And then on the other side, there's like, you know, the cognitive behavioral therapies, which of course nowadays are by far the most popular and the most administered. And in Holland, it's like the only therapy that's still being, you know, recognized as evidence-based and as working. And these kind of therapies will be very concretely focused on the here and now. They won't take a lot of time, and they will be focused more on the symptoms, the problem that someone's suffering from. Now, PRI, you can say, is situated in the middle of this field, because it's focused both on the here and now, of course, because that's the goal, the here and now, and we're looking at the here and now very concretely. But in order to understand the here and now, to explain it and to be able to work with it, we go into the past as well. So it's on both, you know, these levels, we combine them. And PRI is focused on both behavior and feelings and our thoughts. So it's a cognitive, emotional, and behavioral approach, going into the past and looking at the present for the results. Now, I would like to give you a small demonstration of how PRI works. Of course, I can't demonstrate the whole method, but I can do a little demonstration for you with someone who's here and show you the working of the circle, where we have our adult consciousness and the symbol that takes us out of the adult consciousness, projects us into the old pain, and then there's an immediate unconscious move into the defense mechanisms, one of the 5 defense mechanisms. So I'll show you how that works, and then also we'll see if we can help the person, the client who will do this with me, if I can help her to actually find what's there behind this specific symbolic situation. So what old pain is being touched on by this symbol? Okay, so there we have Jolande. Hello, good morning, Jolande. Please join me.
Good morning. Hello.
And now we have to sit really close together, otherwise they cannot see us. Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Jolande is a colleague, and she will. She's willing to do this exercise, which in PRI we do a lot. So just see how that works. Okay, since today we're talking about eating disorders, Jolande, you're not suffering from an eating disorder. I mean, it would be a little bit difficult to get someone in here now for a demonstration who is suffering from that. So, but you do have, of course, some experience. Well, of course, you have some experience with, being very skinny, and also with eating maybe a little bit too much, like most of us have experience. So, would you like to share something about that?
Yes, I think I've not really had an eating disorder, but when I was, I think, 21 till I was, now I think 35, I was really, really skinny. And I speak about really skinny. And that was not about controlling my food, but it was not having the urge to eat. It was, I feel very heavy by eating. It didn't came into my mind to eat because the tension was too much. And so
there was too much tension.
Yes,
to eat?
yes.
How do you
maybe I feel very tensioned, and then I get out my body.
Okay, yeah, feel a lot of stress,
Yes.
tension, and then you would just dissociate.
Dissociate.
Just leave your body. So there was never an impulse to eat.
There was
actually.
there was no impulse to eat because I know I have to eat, so I eat in the evening a little bit or in the morning a little bit, but I never understand people who were eating 3 times a day. In that time, now I do. In that time. And so it was really, really, and not getting the impulse.
Okay, and how skinny is really skinny?
At the most real bad time, it was after the birth of my daughter, and of course I was getting weight, and then I give breastfeeds, and then the worst period it was 39 kilos. So I had to stop with the breastfeed, and I was thinking it's because of the breastfeeding, but it was not true.
No, of course not. No, okay. So that was when you were younger, and now so then what happened for you to start eating and becoming, putting on weight?
Yes, I have my children, of course, and we have real meals together, and I had a real nice family, so we did it. So I eat, and I eat, and very normal, actually.
But what happened? How could you make the transition from feeling so stressed that you wouldn't have an impulse to eat to starting to eat normally?
Of course, I was a therapist, so I did a lot of work, and I did a lot of therapy. I have done all the things, not all, but really, I think 80% from what's there on therapy. So I was working on myself, and I know, of course, I did it on willpower, I think. But then started, I liked it, and I did it too much. Not really too much. I'm not discontrolled, but I'm sitting on a table, and it was very nice, and eat another thing, and so I'm getting weight. And I'm now 64 kilos.
Okay, so you were getting a little bit overweight.
Yeah.
Not obese, but a little bit overweight.
Yeah.
And it was associated to feeling what was it?
Cozy. It's some together. It was some. Yes, having a place in a family. I think that was it about. Really touched me immediately.
Yes. Just take your time, take your time. It's okay. It's important, huh?
Yeah. Dus that's the old pain. Going out of the house, was losing any place. But actually, there was no place for me at all in the old reality.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what you're seeing now is whenever you work with PRI and you touch exactly on the old painful reality that had to be repressed. If you touch on it, you see what happens. It's like all of a sudden there's just like this
Came up.
it's just like a big wave in the beginning or a little wave afterwards. But it's always, you can always recognize it's old pain because it's just there like all of a sudden. Huh? It's almost like you're surprised. It's like it comes from the back and then, oh, here it is again.
Yes.
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 Okay. And then you can also recognize it, see how important this, what this means about how it was for you as a child. And now, how do you feel?
Really normal. Very good, actually. Because I'm very happy I get a new point of view. And so in this time I didn't PRI, of course. Now I do PRI.
Yeah, because sometimes people can think, oh, PRI is just about crying all the time, but
no. We need it for a little period, but now it's about the here and now, and I can see it. But I already have a good place in the world. I have a very good life. I have children. I have all the things. So I'm very happy. That's in the here and now.
Yeah, and the tears that come up are gone very quickly. Also,
yes. It's really like a wave. A wave, and then you get in the wave, but I don't need to get in the wave because now I know what's about, and then I can go in the now, and I see the now for what it is.
Yeah, and the being touched by the old pain that comes up like a little wave, it also passes very quickly.
Very, very quickly.
Because that's what's so astonishing to see, that it comes up, it's very, deep, and really touches you. You allow it to be there for, well, I don't know how long, maybe 10 seconds, and then it also goes away. It's not like you have to push it away or that you have to stop it.
No, it's like just to have
goes through you.
And with my consciousness, I know what it is.
Yeah, but the wave goes throh you. It passes through.
Yeah, it passes through and go away.
It's not like you have to tell yourself, oh, I have to stop it now. No. It just makes it finishes. It's like it's a natural movement. It finishes its natural movement.
Yes. It's fade away, and then you can wake up in the here and now and see what is here now. Yeah.
So actually, in the introduction,
yes,
we already did the exercise.
Yeah, we did the exercise. So do you have questions?
Well, I don't know if everybody can understand. I see some people that are already involved in PRI therapy. They will understand.
Yes, I am.
Let's see if we can, if that's okay with you,
yes.
to do one more.
Yes.
To do one more real exercise.
Yes.
Okay, Yolande. So what is there a situation that, in the present that you would like to talk about that somehow is, not pleasant for you?
Yes.
Associated with food?
Yes, I live alone now for 4 years now, and so I'm working during the day, and then in the evening I stop working, and then I can feel there is an impulse to eat.
And that impulse is when?
When I stop working, coming to my living room from my practice, and then I have the impulse to eat.
Okay.
Or in the weekends, I have the impulse to eat a little bit more. It's not always do that,
but it's you can feel it's there. Yeah, or after your work is done.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what are you seeing? What do you perceive? So that's very literal, aren't you? So you work. Your cabinet is upstairs on the first floor in your house, and then you come down the stairs. When are you aware when the impulse starts? Is it right away when you walk out of the cabinet, or
Yeah, walk in the cabinet, work is done, going down, and then I feel, oh, I would like to have some nuts or avocado. I'm fond of avocados. Or
very soft and creamy.
Yes,
yeah. Avocado.
That's the same. Yeah, it's the same. I discovered it already, but it's the same. And or a little bit quark.
Cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese,
creamy
almond
cottage cheese.
cream, but also salt.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Salt.
Yes.
Salt. Like salt or
avocado with a lot of salt.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and salt. Yes, salt food or some chips or some cheese. I was very involved in all that.
Very involved in cheese. Sounds good. I'm involved in cheese. Okay, so but the impulse starts immediately. Is it when the last client leaves, or is it when you go out of that space?
No, it's when I stop working, stopping doing things.
Okay. So you close your the client's gone. You do some computer stuff, and then you close the computer.
Yes.
Okay. And what is it that you are perceiving then? What does it mean, Yolanda? When the work is done, then you go where? Where do you go? What?
I'm a little bit walking through the house, a little bit. Don't know what to do, or immediately don't know. It's a little bit lost. I see there's nobody anymore. Nothing to do, nothing to connect to, nobody to. There is nobody.
So it's the emptiness.
It's the emptiness, yes.
But if you're working on your computer, what's the difference? Because then you're alone also.
Yes, but then I'm attached to work. Then I'm connected to the work. So then I have to do something. So it's when I stop doing things.
Okay, but you're connected to the work. But the work is about what?
About clients, about PRI, about all the things I have to do in my practice.
Yeah.
Doing mail or something.
So all your work, you're not a technician.
No.
You're not a fixer of washing machines.
No.
Your work is connected to
people.
Yeah. So then your work is done, and then you go down into your house, and there are no more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no more living.
No more life.
There's no more life.
Everything is empty, quiet, no life around you. Okay, so when you look at that situation, Yolanda, when there's no more life around you, then what is coming towards you? What is there?
There's nothing to. There's nothing. There's no life anymore. No.
No joy.
No joy. No light.
No light.
Yes, no light. People are light,
but if it's in the weekend during the day, there is light. But you perceive like there's no light.
Yes. There's no lightness. There's nobody. There's nobody. There's no life.
Yeah. And if this may be a difficult question, but where are these people? Where are the people?
Yeah, they're gone. They're on their own way. They're not.
But why are they gone? Here you need to talk. Don't talk from your rational mind, but from your feelings. Why are they gone? What's going on?
Yes, they don't want to connect anymore.
They don't want to connect anymore. With what kind of energy don't they want to connect anymore?
I think upset or not interested. Those things. Not interested or upset with me. Not. No, not upset. It's not a word. It's don't want to connect. That is it. Don't want to connect. It's like this, at least. It's like don't want to see you what you need. That. Don't want to.
Because why don't they want to see what you need? Why don't they want to connect?
Because they're mad of it. In my feeling, in my perception, they are not. It's just it's annoying. It's it makes them upset.
Makes them upset to deal with your needs.
Yeah.
And to see you and to see what you need and what you want.
Yeah.
So they disconnected, like you say, they push you away, being pushed away because that person cannot deal with your needs.
Yeah, with my emotions.
And your emotions. It makes them upset because what's going on? Why would they be upset?
Because they're upset by themselves. They're inside. There's inside a big struggle.
So this person you're talking about already is in a very bad place with themselves. So there's like nothing left to.
Yeah, there's nothing left, and they're not want to connect with other problems.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
So it's like incapable to take care of your needs.
Yeah, and being aggressive to my needs.
Yeah.
They don't want it.
No.
Don't want to stop it.
So it's like an active rejection.
Yes.
Like away with you.
Yes.
So that's what's coming towards you then when you're alone. It's like very active, aggressive rejection.
It's a new point of view.
Yeah. What do you feel when we're talking about it?
Yes, I feel the pain. I feel the pain, and I know, of course, of this old reality where my mother was very upset by herself, by her things,
by her history. Yeah,
by her history of being a camp prisoner.
Yeah, World War II.
Yeah.
Camp survivor.
Yes,
when she was very young. Yeah. So the way that she reacted then to you as a small child and your needs and your emotions was to actively push you away to a place where it's very empty, there is no life, and it's dark.
And I know, of course, what's that about.
Yeah.
I discovered it recently.
Yeah. Do you want to share that?
She put me in a
shed. And for you didn't know how long.
Yeah. And for me, it's a very good thing to discover that, because I didn't know. And it came back and back and back.
Yeah.
I said, what is it? What's the parallel? What's the symbol? Because I'm doing PRI for a long, long, long time. But this is it. And now, I know it. And that's a very, very good thing. But it's a new parallel.
Yeah. And because the important about finding is that you didn't understand why you were feeling so bad every time after work was done. And you just got stuck in the idea that it was about, well, here I am now living alone. There's nobody in the house anymore. So
children house.
Yeah.
It's the house. My husband has died. So of course I am feeling unhappy. Of not really unhappy, but not feeling the joy in life.
Yeah. And everybody that you talk to will say, of course. So you should, change your life. And of course, it can always be an idea to do things in life, But this underneath, if that's not healed, it will just go along with you to any tennis club or any friend or any opera that you go to. It will always be inside.
So it will never be like before. It's it's only getting worse. But that was the identification.
Your idea.
Idea. My stuck-in idea.
Yeah.
But now I know, so I can't wait to go home and have my experience.
But being by yourself.
Yeah. That's being by myself and looking for it, and when I get the impulse to eat.
Yeah. And also when you finish your work.
Yes, of course.
And then when the feeling comes, you will know, oh my God, it's like being sent or being dumped, being thrown into the shed, the dark shed, being locked and not knowing how long. And nobody can hear you.
Nobody can hear me.
There's no life inside. It's dark.
No, because I had the feeling I want to scream.
Yeah.
But I said, no, it was not very helpful. So because there's nobody little crazy, so I don't. But that was the impulse too. Very interesting. Very interesting how precise.
How exact it is. Yeah. How precise. Yeah. The parallels. Incredible, huh? So in the present, you're alone in your house, wonderful house, everything's great. Lots of people that love you, that you can call, that can come and visit, where you can go, and you're inside and you just feel like sometimes you want to scream and you think, what's going on with me? I'm crazy. Well, you don't think that, but then at that moment you can think, what is this about? And now it's all clear. You actually go back unconsciously to being that little girl, maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, that's being dumped into a shed, locked, and with no idea how long it's going to take, and with nobody hearing you.
No.
Wow. What a discovery, huh?
Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah.
That's very, that I want to say. It's so cool, so very helpful, and immediately a sense of liberation when you discover what's underneath. Yeah. Because then you realize it's not about a now.
Yeah.
It's not about a now.
Yeah. Because that's what's the painful thing. If you think I'm feeling bad, whatever it is, I want to eat, or I'm alone, or I want to scream, or whatever. And that's because my life now is da-da-da.
Yeah.
That's a horrible, place to be.
Yes.
And then trying to change the life, but never succeeding. Because whatever you do, even if you change your life, it just will never change the inside. Yeah.
And it's what you're talking about. And everybody said, of course, you had a horrible experience. Your children moved out, and your husband died in a short time, and but that's not true.
No.
It's about the inside,
exactly.
And it's not about now. It's about the past reality.
Yeah. And then the loving people unknowingly will reinforce the bad position, the trap that you're in, which means thinking it's about the now, because they're empathic and they say, of course, I understand, like you just. So that's just making it worse, actually.
Yes, and all you read about widows, it's nothing. It's not to be the same.
Life will never be the same again.
No.
So that's also very depressing.
Yes, remarrying, or it doesn't matter what you do; it will be never the same again. That's the message in books, and of course you can be happy again.
You mean, of course you can be happy again?
But not as happy as then.
That's what's in the books.
Yeah, that's what
the books say.
Yeah, of you hear a lot of widows about it.
Yeah, so you have to accept, in a way.
Yeah, you have to accept that it is...
That you're living life, but it's sort of like handicapped in a way. Emotionally handicapped.
Yeah.
And what do you think now?
No, I think now that I'm handicapped, I will I will discover a lot of new things, and I can do new things. I can travel, for example, what I never had done before. And I love my work, and I love to to visit my children, and so there's a lot of nature and healthy and
it doesn't feel like now it's just downhill.
no,
Because that's the message you're getting.
Yeah,
and it's normal.
It's not going downhill. Of course, I'm getting older, but I'm healthy and I'm a little bit more wise than I was 20, and I can use my skills. It will be very nice.
Well, wonderful. That's very good. Okay, well, I think thank you so much, because it shows so well your experience of how, we project what's still repressed, how we project that onto the present. And we are being reinforced in that projection by our environment with all good intentions. And actually finding what's behind it, it just brings up this old pain, and then you get past it. And what a difference that can make.
It's not to describe the difference.
Undescribable.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not an improvement. It's a
name it. My English is not good enough to have a word for it, but it's day and night. A shift of day and night, night and day.
Exactly.
Night and day. Yeah.
From the night to the day. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, let's see if anybody would like to ask some questions. We still have some time. So I'd love to hear from anybody, or anybody who wants to maybe say something, maybe from your own experience with eating disorders, or maybe experience with your clients, or questions about, how to deal with clients. Anything is welcome.
People can ask questions by chat, Ingeborg.
Okay.
Otherwise,
would you read them to me, or?
Yes, I will read them.
Because there's so many messages that it's a little bit too difficult to focus on that.
So just have to wait. I don't see any questions yet.
Okay.
Maybe you were so clear, there are no questions anymore. So there was still one question before. I can read it. You see, it was in the beginning. I'm sorry, I have to find it. Oh, numerous.
Question.
Oh yes, okay. You can read it yourself, Ingeborg. Do you see it?
How about, what about the parents? Oh, I really like that question. Because it's one of the things that people think that PRI is about, blaming our parents for what they did to us. And it's really, really important that we understand that we are all part of a transgenerational chain of trauma. And it comes from us to our children, and it comes from our parents to us, and it comes from their parents to them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we are all part of that. And nobody is guilty, because I am convinced that everybody will do the best they are capable of in any given moment in time, even if sometimes horrible things happen. I think people are driven by impulses of negativity, of compulsive behavior, from which they might do horrible things to their children. But I don't believe in guilt. Actually, guilt within PRI we see as a defense mechanism. I do believe, however, in responsibility. And each one of us can take responsibility for healing ourselves, and then for trying to break this transgenerational chain that we're passing on to our children. And at the same time, I think it's important to understand that nobody can do it perfectly. Nobody. I made a lot of mistakes with my children, even though I was trying to do it perfectly at that time. which of course is false hope, is another defense mechanism. So it's very important not to think that it's about blaming our parents. Like even the example I gave you about my client who was being rocked, by her father until she would lose, she would become unconscious. Even that. I mean, I have not worked with the father, but I am sure if I would work with him, there would be quite extreme violence in his childhood. So it's not like, oh, what a bad father, and now the poor woman has bulimia. No. It's the human condition. It's the human condition. We are all part of it. And that's why, we work so hard to try to spread this message and try to do these webinars and try, all the other things that we're doing to help people to understand that we're all caught up in this chain. Nobody's guilty of that. But we can do something about it. That's the great news. We can do something. We can liberate ourselves and then help our children also to heal. Okay. Can Ingeborg talk about... Oh, here's another question. Okay, now I have a lot of questions. Let me go back. See, this is difficult for me, Tanya, because I'm...
Okay, yes. Next question is, can you tell something about how PRI can help with anorexia?
But I see first another question. I see here, on the basis of the story of Jolande, eating doesn't have to be a real disorder to be a problem. Okay, so I'll just go by the questions in the order that they came in, because there's quite a few now I see. Yeah, it doesn't have, of course. I think, I don't know how it is for you, but I can relate totally to that story of eating too much. Even though I'm not overweight, anybody who looks at me, I'm 1.80 meters and I weigh 70 kilos. Nobody will say I'm overweight, but I can completely relate to, once I'm eating, that I get into something and I will not want to stop. So I won't eat a lot too much, but I will eat a little bit too much. I completely relate to that. And personally, I love licorice, as some of you know. So I would love to eat, a bag of licorice, the soft, sweet kind. I'll just eat it. And I won't do it with, violence and wildness in my eyes. I don't have an eating disorder, but I can feel, and I thought, what is that about? What is it about? And it took me years to think, what is that about? And then I realized it's about the chewing. It's a certain chewing movement that I make with my mouth, which is directly related to being breastfed. I thought that was very interesting. So I have never, well, I can't say never, but I think I have met very, very few people who don't have some issue with food. Personally, I can't really think of someone who says, oh, well, I'll just eat this and then, I'm full and it's fine. So it's a very good thing, I think, for all of us to realize that people that suffer from an official eating disorder are just like, anybody else. Will you tell something about how PRI can help with anorexia? Yeah, there's a story of a client that I worked with who had anorexia. It's in Rediscovering Your True Self, in my first book. And well, the most important thing is what I did is bit by bit, it took a long time, because I think anorexia is really very complicated. It's a very ingrained pattern of that feeling. So I helped her bit by bit to start, feeling a little bits. And then from the little bits, she, could feel a little bit more. And that was just about the present. I mean, I couldn't do the PRI work with her because there wouldn't be any feelings. But I would search in the present and see which situations might be touching her a little bit, and then, focusing on that and help her to slowly start to have the courage to access her body. Because, of course, the body was completely, she didn't feel anything in the body. So because it's very scary for someone with anorexia to actually access their body. So it's a step-by-step process, and you need a lot of patience. I remember with this client, I think I worked 3 years maybe, whereas a normal, or whatever is normal, but an average PRI therapy will last about 30 sessions. I think with her 3 years, she came, I think, once every 2 weeks. So that's about like double. It's about 60 sessions. And you can read about her in my book. And it was so fantastic because at a certain moment, she really started to discover her body. For the first time in her life, she started to discover her sexuality. And then, you know, at the end of the what she wrote for my book was, I can feel, with, you know, capital letters. But it takes a lot of patience, I think, from the side of the client, obviously, and the therapist. Why is it that someone like Henny, who perceives dangers and threats all day long, starts to binge eat and does not, for example, develop the urge to defend by aggression, isolation? Well, see, that's very interesting. I don't know. Even, you know, I've done thousands of sessions and seen so many people. I can see the problem in the present and then see what's underneath it, but the other way around, like what's in the past, and then to say, well, this sort of a past will develop into this, and this sort of a past will develop into that. That is very interesting, but I cannot say anything about that. I mean, I could hypothesize about it, but I think the most important thing for us as therapists is to get a very good idea of how we can help people to like fall through the present, fall through the perceptions that are focused on the present, and then to find what's behind it. But it's a very interesting question. So I can see it's from Gilbert, whom I know. If you ever find the answer, Gilbert, I would love to hear it. And then we have from Rob. Can Ingeborg talk about what she has learned about the connection between eating disorders and self-harming, self-mutilation? Personally, I haven't learned anything about that. But the first thing that comes to mind from the work I have done with clients that are suffering from this is that there is such extreme shame and guilt associated to it. So this guilt and shame can be numbed in a way to self, you know, by self-mutilating and harmful behavior. So I think that's directly, self-mutilation is connected directly to the degree of primary defense that someone's suffering from. It's too painful to see yourself as whatever. Yeah? We talked about that today. So then you can numb those feelings. But then, of course, it will just make it worse, because when you're self-mutilating and you're done, then you see the consequences on the body. And that will just then confront even further with the negative self-image. And it won't really help the person to go into compassion, empathy for themselves. So it's so important, I think, that if we, as you know, at least as therapists and as fathers and mothers and friends and family of people that are suffering from this, if we can see it through compassionate eyes, that there is a survival mechanism that's gone completely, you know, out of control and is making the person suffer so much. If we can see that it's not their fault, but that they're in the grip, they're taken hostage by a defense mechanism. If we can see that, then we can feel empathy and we can connect to the person, and the person can feel understood and can feel connected and you know, open up to seeing what's going on inside, and we can stop the horrible process of, you know, feeling shame and then isolating yourself and then, you know, doing more, you know, in this case, eating, whatever, or even harming yourself and then feeling even more ashamed and isolating even further. You know, that hell, it's really, I think, a vicious circle that is like it must be like being in hell. I've heard people say that. It was like I was living in hell, and I went from therapy to therapy, and it just felt like nothing could help me. And I just was so completely alone with that. So I think that's, in the end, is maybe the worst of all of this. Okay. Let's see, my client sees it as having control over her own feelings, at least when she cut herself in her teenage years. She had some, yeah, that's exactly what I just meant. Because the pain is so horrible that then you can numb the pain. But of course, it's that's quite an illusion, because imagine you hurt yourself in order to feel less pain. But that's true. That's how it works. It's like any defense mechanism will give us the illusion that it's, helping us not feel pain. But actually, it's making it worse, much worse in the present. Okay, if anybody whose question I've answered feels like it wasn't really an answer to their question, please let me know if the answer wasn't complete or if you would like to add anything. Or another question. Yeah, here we see a remark from Eunice. Such nice words that nobody's guilty. Yeah. At that time, you give everybody a place in your heart. That's very important, I think. Absolutely. Absolutely. If we could live in a world where we don't judge each other and don't say the other person's guilty of hurting you, my God, what a difference would that make? Yes, thank you for that remark. And Linda, I suffered from bulimia and I was searching for the rush to feel the pain in my stomach. Wow, okay. Well, here you can hear very specific details, which are connected somehow to what you have experienced as a child. There's something about feeling pain in your stomach. So it's like by doing this, it's like you're unconsciously, of course, you're unconsciously controlling pain. So there's pain in the stomach, which I think is associated to something as a child you had suffered and had no control over because it was inflicted on you, not by yourself, but by someone else, the violence of someone else. And now it's like your unconscious mind is going back to that experience, but then in a way that you are controlling it. So that installs the feeling of it's within my control, instead of the horrible feeling associated to this pain inside of you over which you have no control and can do nothing about. So here we see another interesting mechanism where when things happen to us as children that we had no control over, sometimes that can translate into adult behavior in which people inflict pain on themselves and even become addicted to that. It makes me think of a man who was abused sexually as a child, and then as an adult he could not stop himself from going to a place. It's called the baan. I don't know what it's called in English, but it's a place where homosexual men would meet in the dark somewhere in a parking lot, and he would go there in order to be abused. And he was addicted to that. And then after it was done, he would feel horribly overwhelmed with primary defense and even suicidal. But it's like he couldn't stop it was like a compulsion also. Yeah. My client is and then here, Crystal, what I did by not eating anymore was that then I could feel something. I could feel the hunger. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because that shows, it's like you were just completely cut off from your own feelings. And then not eating gave some access to some feeling. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And here, I experienced also a lot of self-hate in my eating disorder. Yeah. Yeah, of course, the self-hate is the primary defense. So it's so much suffering, and it's so hidden. So I'm so happy that we can share this, and together here today, and hopefully many people and many therapists and many people suffering from this and people associated with it will get this information. And here, I experienced also a lot of self-hate in my eating disorder by vomiting. So I don't know, was it in the vomiting that you experienced the self-hate, Annelies? Or was there self-hate before and then you tried to vomit it out? Maybe you can explain this? Oh, you were pregnant and you would vomit. And you hated yourself for doing that, I imagine. That was it. Yeah, okay. Okay, well. I think it just shows how many people are suffering from this. Just from the people sitting here, some of whom I know, who have normal lives, successful lives, are therapists, and look at what we are suffering from and not, sharing, not showing the world actually what is really going on. So that people can keep on thinking, oh, this is not about me, or this person, is crazy, or just stop doing this. How wonderful it would be if we could start to understand that all these different problems are so widespread and that all of us are suffering from, I think, one or the other. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm seeing a chat coming. I can't look at you and the chats at the same time. That's why it's difficult for me to see the chat. So now I have to put this window and I don't see all of you here. What a beautiful webinar, and indeed how much suffering there is in this world. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the work you do. Well, I'm so happy to do this, and I'm so happy that people like you are watching this, that you are signing up, and we're going to distribute this recording to many people who signed up. And I'm so happy for the courage of all of you to share this. And every webinar that we do is like this. It's about real people. It's about real problems. It's about sharing the suffering that's behind this beautiful, outside mask that we all show the world. And that's so important. The more people that we can actually share this message with, the more it will open all of us up to compassion and empathy and be connected from the heart to each other. And what's more beautiful than that? Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and come back for the next webinar. I do these 4 times a year. Anybody can participate. It's free, so wonderful if you want to be part of the initiative. Okay. Can't hear anybody, but I see you. Yeah. Bye-bye.